Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Neil, 10th Man. Who else we got? Chocolate Saying and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all.
Hey, good morning.
Yo, good morning.
Good morning, Discord server. Enthusiastic lot.
Morning.
Thank you.
One of my co-workers says good morning to everybody.
Hey,
We've got
good morning.
more enthusiastic background guests on Chocolate's End than we have from Discord. Excellent start.
Good morning.
At least I know it's working. Thanks to is it Solaris 984. Thank you very much. Hey, Arwin.
Well,
Thank you. Hey, Arwin.
hello.
Yeah.
Good to have you. Any evidence of a physical, geometric sphere edge for a horizon, formerly known as Earth curvature?
It only exists mathematically on a reified model.
Yep. The horizon is an apparent location where the sky meets the ground. And yeah, if there was a specific geometry going on in the Earth realm, then that requires specifics. But the Black Swan dispelled that.
That's correct. If it's got geometry, it's got geometric limitations to it. Any evidence of the R value? Talking of the Black Swan.
Nope. The Black Swan, yeah, basically put that entire concept out of the door because, yeah, you can see way too far for the presumed sphere that the Earth should be. And that just, at best, we've disproven their radius. And apparently they don't think that's a problem anymore because in the math it still works out. And they think they can just put terrestrial refraction to save it like a band-aid, but it doesn't work because terrestrial refraction doesn't exist. It's a paradox.
But that shows you how much of a reification it is, right? Because if their radius was solid and it was an actual measurement and they needed it for their model, right? Well, they would have a problem with their radius being debunked. There's no way you would just say, well, at best, you've disproven our radius. What? Your whole model is based on this crap. Are you just going to say, oh, it's all right. At best, you've just disproven it? Well, that's a problem. I do not see that as a problem.
Yeah, that demonstrates
that
having an acute understanding of the Black Swan argument would lead you to the logical conclusion that the radius has been debunked, and it's required. You've got to have the radius of Earth if you're going to get 7/6 radius. That's terrestrial refraction, which is where Arwin's paradox comes in. You can't have 7/6r to move the geometric horizon because you need r, i.e. a derivation of the radius value, to move the horizon with the radius value. So if you can't see it, you can't measure it, you can't get r, you can't move the horizon. So it ends in a paradox. Well, that's devastating. Absolutely terrible. What are you going to do? Say it works in the maths. It doesn't. The maths implodes. You can't get the measurement. Hey, Adam. Good to have you.
Afternoon, everyone.
Hey, Adam.
Yeah, mate.
What's up, Adam?
We hear you. We hear you.
Now you talk.
We also hear the squealing of 10th man's mic.
I'm sorry.
That's all good. You just get background noise whenever you're not talking for some reason. I don't know why. Just part of the device. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
See question number 1.
Question 1 being about Earth curve.
Yeah, well, it's got to be a ball to have a core, right?
They just assume a
We
tangent.
need that ball part.
Yep, they ain't got it. Presupposed spherical Earth, molten iron core. Anybody in Discord? Anybody at all?
Why, you couldn't have a core in something that's not a sphere?
Look at what core means.
Well, we could have a center of something then, even if it was a flat plane.
To be at the centre, it'd have to be a shape of some description, though, wouldn't it? It'd have to be a shape. Are you asserting that it has a shape regardless of sphericity?
No, I'm saying no shape. Just we don't even know how far down this place is that we're living on. So maybe there could be something in the center.
Sure, but you said at the centre, so to have a centre, you've got to have a shape to be at the centre of it.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess then there's no evidence.
If it's looping, then technically there is no center.
What's looping?
It's a concept.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
What is the sun?
The clouds are in front of it.
Not even to the center of the sun.
Nope. Only angular size and angular location. That's it.
Would there be any way we could get the distance to the sun?
That's what I'm asking. Maybe say even higher pitched. Is there any way we can get the distance to the sun, Neil?
Well, Nathan, how would you determine the distance to the sun?
Well, how would you determine it, Arwin? How would you establish the distance to the sun?
What is the sun?
I would try to go there and then see if there's an angular size increase. And yeah, get as much proximity data as I can. And then I could potentially derive a conclusion of a specific location. If there is enough of this data that would point to that. If there is no angular size increase and there's no persistent angular location even in relation to the observer on the Earth, when you go up, for example, then I can test it all I like. The conclusion of it being in a specific location is just gonna not be there.
Feel free to address my appeal to consensus in rebuttal, Arwin, but wouldn't they have figured that out already? If they wouldn't have needed to assume a certain size, i.e., that light up there called the sun is the same size as Earth as a sphere. No, not the sun, Venus is the same size as Earth as a sphere. They wouldn't have needed to make the assumption that Earth's twin is to be seen in Venus, a light in the sky, if they did know.
Agreed.
They could still my point is, if they knew one of them, they could still apply Kepler's third law. Obviously, we're assuming we're on a sphere at this point. But my point is still the same, that, if they had one of those, they wouldn't leave a wide open, Christian Huygens just assumed Venus was the same size. Well, they wouldn't have done that. That's an appeal to consensus, because maybe they're doing, they're hiding it. I don't know. I just don't think it...
Well, if there was a specific sun location and size that's actually measured up, there should be some data of this.
Exactly. That's exactly my point.
And not just storytelling.
You'd think we'd have that by now. Exactly, Arwin.
That's a good point.
Doesn't mean it's not there. It doesn't. It's not proof of evidence of it not being capable of being attained. It doesn't mean that either. I'm just saying that, shouldn't we have that already? What's with the assumptions?
Well,
Any evidence?
They could have at least tried to model and figure out what if the sun is not a physical object doing that, like a lamp hanging there, then they could at least model how the light seems to work.
They just leave that to their brain dead opposition on the flat Earth side, Arwin.
No, they will keep that secret. That's lodge stuff. That's like Freemason secret lodge stuff.
Oh, the Freemasons know, do they, Arwin? Oh, yeah. The Freemasons know, do they?
I think they did.
You think they do? I think it's the Illuminati. I think they know.
I don't know.
Well, if it's not the Illuminati, it must be the reptilians.
No, it's just something that I think that a lot of Freemasons have worked on, even when, it's kept. But you got to keep it a secret like that.
Just as I mentioned it, anybody who's watched any reptilian garbage, understand that that's somebody who's taken a metaphor too far. They're detailing the behavioural patterns of people who utilise the reptilian cortex or pineal gland in their brain. Now, those people are accurately described in a group as psychopaths. And if you haven't figured this out already, the world is run by psychopaths. Now, their utilisation of this particular part of their brain and calling it reptilian, which is completely arbitrary, doesn't mean we're run by aliens. It's just people taking a metaphor too far. Just thought I'd drop that in for anybody who's under the impression that we have reptilian overlords. We don't. But many of them are psychopaths, meaning devoid of empathy. Otherwise known as narcissists, same thing. Quick shout out to Retro.
That's a direct quote from John Lennon.
From John who?
That's a direct quote from John Lennon.
It wasn't intentional. Which bit?
That the world is run by psychopaths.
It is. Maybe we'll cover that after housekeeping a bit more, because we discussed subliminals in the pre-show. We didn't cover psychopathy, but it's a pre-show, after-show subject, so we might not cover it in the live show. Just a quick shout-out to Retro Bill, though. Science proves baller claims. Well, that's wrong straight away, Retro Bill. Let's see where this is going. Science proves baller claims, but not as just a double-speak tactic they use in order to play both sides of the fence. Yeah, kind of. Thank you very much for the super chat, first and foremost, Retro Bill. Science doesn't prove baller claims. Science is a method for establishing cause of natural phenomena, and they don't have any science, so it definitely doesn't prove baller claims. When you say it doesn't prove our claims, well, you can't prove the Earth is flat with science. It's beyond the scope of science. So if people are claiming scientific validity to that assertion, they'd be wrong. But it doesn't mean that we can't utilise a claim of science where it stands to disprove a claim that a baller's made. For example, you can say when a baller incorrectly asserts that science doesn't prove things, normally because they've been caught out using the words and vernacular of science to grease the skids of their globe claim when it has no scientific validity. When that happens, they say incorrectly that science doesn't prove anything. And you can say, well, here's an example of a scientifically valid experimental piece of data that's advanced humanity, like the discovery that the lack of vitamin C causes scurvy, ascertained through the scientific method and benefited humanity. That's proof from science. You can also point out that at the end of a actualized hypothesis, that would be an experiment, you prove your null or prove your alternative. So the only purpose of experiment in the scientific method, the final stage, the actualization of your scientific prediction, that's a hypothesis, is to prove something. That's its only purpose. You can point that out with science and scientific validity and scientific data in the form of scurvy to disprove their claim. So in that respect, science is on our side and it's an empirical method. You're not going to ever argue with my claim in that regard. But it absolutely annihilates the notion that science doesn't prove things, as asserted by clowns like Vsauce and backed up by people like Rumpus.
But Rumpus did say science proves things. He says he's got the whole body of science that proves the Earth is a sphere.
Yeah, when it suits their needs, they'll acquire the vernacular of science. They'll use words like experiment. They'll use words like science to make you, the audience, believe that when they make a bullshit claim with pseudoscience, that it's actually empirically valid. At that moment, they want you to believe that science is a powerful tool for proving things, which it is. But the moment you point out that they don't actually have any scientific validity, they'll say, well, science doesn't actually prove things. Yes, it does. They just didn't have any and can't bear the thought of admitting that. They didn't have any scientific proof for their assertions you're on a sphere, but they all came under the banner of science, which they later declared doesn't prove things. Yes, it does. just didn't prove a globe.
So then the irony of that is afterwards they'll turn around and say things like, oh, you guys are asserting that the second law of thermodynamics is science. And then when we say, well, those are natural laws, those haven't gone through the scientific method, then they say, well, how do you verify it? Right? Well, we can know things without the scientific method, but you guys assert that things are scientific. So then when we ask you for the science, you say, oh, science doesn't prove things. And we just go round and round and round.
Yeah,
It's
utilizing
just tactics.
Yeah, just tactics, exactly. But the bottom line in that regard is that they've said for a long while, and plenty of people in the general populace are going to know when I say they have said science proves the globe as a general statement. People know precisely what I mean. They'll know that astrophysicists are classed as scientists. You got Neil deGrasse Tyson telling you that science is right whether you like it or not. So these people are punting science. They don't have any for the claim we're on a globe, though. None. Zero. Nada. They don't have science. But they used all the words, right? That's to leave you with the impression they've proven it. And they haven't. Any scientific evidence for gravity?
Nope. It's a reification fallacy. Relative density explains all the phenomena associated with gravity.
But any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or, as mentioned, astrophysics?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Has 10th had a reply
Say again,
from
Adam?
Dr. Becky yet? Has 10th had a reply from Dr. Becky? Surely that's about their best hope.
Are you joking? You're saying that
Yeah.
the pseudoscience subcategory of astrophysicists' best hopes lay on the shoulders of Dr. Becky? Are you joking?
Seems about a fair appraisal, yeah.
Yeah, she'd do about as good as any of them with their pseudoscience claims. I agree, but it's nice to drag this out a little bit, eh?
What about Physics Girl? What about her? Maybe she's the hero that, they all need.
Physics girl? I've never heard of her. So what's physics? What does that bit mean? Especially the fizz bit. What does it mean?
As in the derivation of physical.
Physical. Oh,
right? Yeah.
Physical girl. So she's definitely going to be talking about the physical and natural world if she's physics girl. So she's going to be right on the level that we're on, the physical and natural world, not the not really is level, but the really is level. Excellent. What's she got to offer? Tell us about the physics girl.
I can't tell you much because I started watching one video and she was talking about Isaac Newton's laws of motion. And she went to some example of back in the day, and she said, oh, well, today, obviously, we can do things that they couldn't do back in the day, like go to space. I turned it off after that. I couldn't. That was done right there.
Yeah, this space is fake. It's a second law of thermodynamics violation. If the sky was a vacuum, then the gas we breathe would fill the space. Space is fake. No one in space, no photos from space, no satellites in space. Stars, also a second law of thermodynamics violation when claimed to be gases not expanding into a vacuum. Yeah, that's all fake too. There is lights in the sky, they're just not as described. They're not vast distances based on an assumed R value either. The whole notion of everything they've told you about the sky is wrong. Sky is not a vacuum. Any evidence that you can even have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container?
Now they're saying it's unfalsifiable, which is ironic because it's exactly the opposite.
But is it science to
No.
no? So the unfalsifiable bit isn't applicable.
Indeed. But they try and use this armoury that isn't applicable. Yeah, those bullets just fly off. I tried to explain it to Ed a couple of days ago. No, you don't put this through the method. Describing something that occurs always doesn't invalidate that it occurs always when the description isn't scientific. It's not claiming to be either. No one's claiming to know the cause of entropy. No one knows why hot always goes to cold. No one knows that. We won't ever know. I doubt we'll ever establish the cause of that. You can try. You could put it through science. But it hasn't been through science. It's just describing something that occurs always. The second law is merely a description.
Funniest part of that is just he kept asking, well, how do you verify it? Well, you just saw it happen. It just happens all the time. Why would you need to verify it? It happens. It's a description. Nobody's telling you why it's happening. Nobody needs to verify that it's happening because you just saw it happen. That simple.
Yeah, it's like you show them it happening and they go, well, have you verified that happens? I just showed you it happening. Well, what happened? Well, I can describe what happened with the second law of thermodynamics. And that happening happens always. And an example can be given with a quote. It's not actually a quote, it's translated. But nature abhors a vacuum. What does that mean? It means that when you've got a vacuum, an area devoid of space, of gas, the gas wants to fill it. Yeah, just naturally the tendency is to fill that gap. Nature doesn't want there to be any vacuums. There aren't any naturally occurring vacuums. But they claim the sky is a vacuum. Now, nature says otherwise. Nature says, no, the gas that's down here, it's going to want to dissipate into that vacuum. That's what it does. It always happens. It's described, not explained, not causally linked, but described, this thing that happens always, in the second law. That's all laws do, describe things that happen always.
And there goes the okey doke, because he'll turn around and say, oh, that's not science? Oh, so then we could just throw the container argument out. Oh, so yeah, just throw out natural laws because they're not science.
Yeah, we can.
Meanwhile, we're not the ones claiming science. You are.
Yeah, it's one way you can throw it out when you can show that it's not real. And we say, oh, it happens always. Oh, no, it's just a description that's not scientifically valid. Oh, right, okay. Can you show me gas pressure without a container, please? That's what you get. Clowns with containers telling you that there's no container, like they're a wizard. Look into my eyes, not around the eyes. Now, you think there's a container, there's no container. Within the container, there's no container. No container, container, no container. And you're in the room. Now, look at this container with gas pressure without a container. There's a container around it. You didn't actually hypnotise me. I can see the container. That's what you get. So you want to claim it doesn't occur always. No worries. Show us gas pressure without a container. What's that? You can't? It's not falsifiable. Yeah, it just can't be done. If it could, it wouldn't be the antecedent for gas pressure. And it is. You need it. That concludes housekeeping.
So conversely, it's very easy to disprove that natural law by just demonstrating gas pressure without a container properly. And it's just, unfortunately, in the whole of history, it never, ever, ever has been demonstrated. But you could undo it by demonstrating it. It's just never, ever, ever been shown yet. There's not one example. So it's not to say you can't. Just fundamentally, we can't even conceive of a way because it follows a natural law. It's not to say you couldn't. It's not to say you couldn't conjure up some magical thing. But as we sit right now, with everything we do know about physics, it is a natural law. It has never been shown to be incorrect.
Out of curiosity, has anyone ever had a positive reaction that wasn't a kind of zealotry-like reaction about the second law of thermodynamics explanation?
Yeah, normies I've spoken to just will kind of raise an eyebrow and go, I spoke to a guy who took out some dents in my car about it, and no, he didn't react adversely, but I just think the people who would come here are very much married to the idea of being on a sphere, and that's their natural tendency to object because their sphere's in a vacuum.
I would agree.
I've had people say, "Oh shit, that makes absolute sense. Why the hell are we breathing?" So yeah, I mean, to somebody who's not, this has become their pastime, trying to debunk flat Earth. Some normal person, if you ask them, how can you have gas pressure without a container? It's almost rudimentary to them. Until they get into this argument in particular, then somehow, of course, that changes, because it has to change in order for you to maintain the model in your mind as reality. That fact right there has to change. So it just depends on the personality, I guess.
It's a good point, Chocolate. When you talk with a normie and you do bring that point up, it's not a point of conversion. But it's often a point where they'll stop and accept that there is a contradiction. And I think you're right. Then when they come into this arena, they have to swallow and ignore that contradiction to carry on, don't they?
On the second channel tonight, Adam, I know you occasionally tune into the re-up, but the one that goes out tonight has got the guys on the panel now that kindly gave us a sound check from Discord at the beginning of the show. Solaris984. Did you see how I slyly got him to relinquish gas go down, go boom boom before entering into the discussion? You weren't here, or were you?
No, I was a little late.
The guy goes out on a paraglider, and I'm like, "Oh, you ever caught a thermal?" I'm a total bastard. So going up then. Just take gravity off
himself. I mean, because of the hot air rising stuff. We're like, oh, hot air rising. That's weird, because we get told that air falls down like bouncy balls. So that's a switch.
Yeah, he didn't realise he was debunking Thunderfoot Clown when he said it, and leading into a conversation about why the sky would ever be a vacuum, knowing full well that their only rebuttal is to assert the gas go down, go boom boom like bouncy balls in a fish tank, as asserted by million subscribed YouTubers like Thunderfoot Clown. That's really all they've got. But when they've described how the gas ain't going down, it's going up, they're going to have a job, right? All vectors. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Up included. Sometimes very up. More up than down.
Then you got the claims that atmospheric pressure is different than the pressure that we have here on Earth.
that was Jazzaconda. So in his mind, he's got this route to winning. No, gas pressure ain't atmospheric pressure. Is that right, my friend? Atmo, that's air. Sphere, well, air isn't a sphere. It's whatever shape of whatever container it's in. But you're just assuming it just naturally sticks to the outside of a ball in a vacuum with this word atmosphere. Now, that's an oxymoron. Gas has no inherent shape. Takes the shape of its container. I don't know how long it'll take to relinquish that word. How long do you reckon before we all unbrainwash ourselves with this word atmosphere, referring to the air above us, or that we're in?
That might take a while, to be honest. That's a tough one.
It's the one I slip up on most.
Me too.
But there isn't an accepted, I suppose, atmoplane. But even
just
that.
Air. Why make it complicated?
I like atmos.
Why not air? Atmo means air. It's the air.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Air.
I mean, you could give it further, like with anything linguistic, you can give it further qualification if it so requires. Well, the air I've gathered up in this jar. Well, the air around me. The air up high. Whatever, you can qualify it however you like, but it's just air. But it's air sphere when you say atmosphere. Well, why is it air sphere? Well, because they've got a fundamentalist religious presupposition that the Earth has air around it and it's not dissipating into a vacuum. So better use that presupposition in the language.
And look how good they are with it, right? They threw it into every layer of the supposed atmosphere, ionosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere. It's everywhere. They just throw it in there to reinforce it. Repetition.
Yeah, again, subliminal. part of the language. I wouldn't even call that subliminal. That's magic when it's linguistic.
Exactly.
That's a magic trick.
That means that all the layers are spherical.
Say again, what's spherical?
All the layers,
of gas.
ionosphere, they're spherical.
Way to beg the question. So, you assume that they're all spherical because of these words. That's nice. So, it automatically makes you beg the question then, doesn't it? Wow, isn't that amazing? Like a magic trick. Great that your timing is so perfect that you literally demonstrated how that magic trick worked immediately after detailing it. Wow. So you assume it's spherical then, because it's in the word. Great magic trick.
Yeah.
Well, that's how it works when you're a kid, right? When you're in school and you're learning all the layers of the atmosphere, and they've got it in your textbook laid out with sphere, 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 how many times it's been written, right? I mean, they're just reinforcing it again and again and again, repetition.
That's what I was meaning when I said it's difficult to stick a new alternative in. It's when you've always said it, as Nathan says, the words conjure up an image. They allow an image from the initial description of just the air actually paints a picture in your mind of a sphere. It puts it there, and that's what I'm saying. It's hard to, because we can't define the nature of what we're on. It's hard to then stick a second adjunct on that word that gives the same description. And you're right, Nathan, it doesn't need it. Just the air is sufficient.
Yep.
I think there's a small part of it that comes from, I think this passive little feeling we get of wanting to know or feeling like we do know about something that is kind of beyond our scope. And much like with all the other points, like at early on indoctrination stages, right? You learn these words and we may not be able to know anything else about it, but we know these words and these words are linked to something specific. It, in reality, is like what you just said, it's air. It's literally what it is. It's just air. It has no any other like quality to it to presuppose a shape, but that's what we're told. And I feel like if we talk to the normie, right, like we'll use these words and they'll use these words, but not necessarily because they want to prove a globe at all. But I think at some point there's like a slight bit of comfort to saying a word and thinking and feeling that you know it, or you know what it means because you were taught what it means. I don't know if that made sense at all.
Makes
but
perfect sense. Very concise.
Yeah.
Yes, well said. Yeah, when I picked up my kid yesterday, she came out with a wand in her hand, and the teacher gives you a little briefing about how your child's, and he says she's been learning about how to spell. And I looked her in the eye without a mask on and said, "Oh, you've been learning about spells and spelling. Next, you'll be learning about grammar," I said to Eleanor. And I look up at the guy, and he's got the most puzzled look on his face. And I thought, you haven't got a clue what I'm on about, do you? You're just talking about waving wands and making frogs appear. Yeah? That's what she's been actually doing. Well, no, I'll be educating her about what spelling is. What is grammar? What does that really mean? And what is it useful for? Obviously, I'm going to teach her now. She's 4. But as time progresses in her comprehension levels and understanding, that will be part of teaching her how to think critically about language, words and their meanings, semantics. Yeah, that's all you can do in terms of arming your kid. Some people think that in terms of education, you've got to tell them what the world and the nature of it is because of exactly what Thrice just detailed. Well, you need to know the answer, so it's best to just give them one. Well, not necessarily. I'm totally the other end of the scale. Give your children critical thought skills.
Amen.
And then it could get to the point where a child can critically think enough that they read their paragraph in their little school book. And in one paragraph, it says, what you don't see when you look outside is anything that remotely looks like a globe. And then in the second paragraph, they say, well, based on observation, the Greeks invented the globe 2,000 years ago. And that kid was able to actually say, hey, wait a minute, you just contradicted yourself. You said we don't see anything like a globe, but because of observation, you were then therefore able to invent a globe. Makes no sense. So give the kids the tools, man. They'll just think for themselves, and it's beautiful.
Exactly.
I think that's why it's so sinister, because children, I've worked with youth quite a bit, they have such a high capacity for critical thinking. It's amazing. And to think that it's kind of started that early on for this type of indoctrination, that always bothers me when thinking about that, because that's obviously intentional, and the consequences are quite large for indoctrination starting young. Sad.
But just to put a positive spin on that, what if it was the case that somebody sometime recognised, this is purely hypothetical, that it's generally the case that people require, i.e. they'd go nuts if they didn't have it, a tentative understanding of the fundamental design of the world they live in. And if they don't, they won't react like me, or I don't know, I could give you a dozen other examples, I'm not going to list people off, but people who've reacted positively. Let's just give one that's a good feel-good story. So Nick Phuket Word described this the same exact way as I did. Wow! You mean we don't know why the sky is blue? Wow, that's cool. What else don't we know? Wow, how exciting. A whole world of possibilities in front of me. If the majority of people go, what? We don't know. It could be anything. It could be the darkest monster. In other words, if you haven't got something in place to keep people, let's just use the words as they actually are, under control, there might be some disaster that befalls them. So in other words, it might be that the most sinister things have come from good intentions.
Yeah, I think you're right, and that's probably why so many people, when they say, well, if it's not a globe, well, what's your model? What is it then?
Exactly.
And then when they get very upset when we say, well, I don't know what it is, not making a claim as to what it is. We're just based, what we're saying is based on our observation of what we see. That's it. We don't have the people have gotten so used to just being able to go in their phone or go on the computer and just pull up an answer for anything, right? You can just pull up, what's that light in the sky? You could just go to Google, pull it up, and it gives you a whole list. It's got a name, it's got stats, like somebody's been there and took measurements and shit. And people say, oh, okay, I feel better. Because somebody somewhere knows something about that thing in the sky, even though I don't, right? And that makes them feel
you see
better, like a cozy blanket.
You see the contradiction in the Truman Show. So Truman's in his classes when he's at very early stages of education, and he's asking about the discovery of the world, and the teacher pulls down the map and says, it's all been discovered already. So he's got the inquisitive mind, and she's telling him, no, you don't need to be a discoverer or an explorer, we already know. Now, true man, in case you don't get the analogy, which is pretty glaring, represents you, the true man. Anyway, yeah, telling you that it's already figured out means you don't think you need to figure it out. Hello? Isn't it obvious?
Yeah, the parallels in that movie are fantastic.
JLB does good analysis, actually, on the Truman Show. Interesting, in the pre-show, we were talking about Neil's sort of scoffing when we pointed out any critical flaws with sports. He's like, oh hold on there. But JLB has a similar attitude, mentioning him, as he's done a pretty good dissection of the Truman Show. But he's similar to you, Neil. He's like, we won't let go of the sports thing, even though he exposes it and shows how it's rigged. Literally, he shows it. But he loves it, right? He can't let it go. He still gets the same chemical release when he watches sports. And, you know, it's a difficult crack to release.
Correct.
Most people, it's just TV in general. You know, no, you can't have TV. It's just poison. It's propagandized. You're never going to get anything useful from it. It's a waste of time. But I like TV.
Most people,
have you seen the latest blah, blah, blah?
So you don't watch TV anymore,
Nathan, most people
just...
waiting that they say, for example, Earth is flat from today, we discovered, on BBC. And then people will believe, maybe.
What I was saying before I was interrupted was there are globes spaceships all over the TV throughout the day. I can't even tell you how many times they put a globe on, astronauts, space movies. Insane.
Well, because you're tuning into the TV
But
programming.
lots of the glitz and glamour around both TV and movie celebrity has been stripped away during COVID. So while everyone's been locked down, nobody's in a professional studio, and it's not conducive to the rules to have makeup artists and script writers with you. You get to see how useless all these people are, and suddenly the rose-tinted glasses have been taken off, and I don't know, it seems like we're in a time where things are massively changing, and Flat Earth is a part of that. There is no two ways about that. So is it a soft release? In other words, I don't think it would. When I described in an extreme example where you've got to keep people under control in a very negative way, the opposite of that is to say, well, while they're under control, just give them that little piece of information, just chuck it out there on the BBC. Well, I think that would cause problems. So I don't think that would ever. I don't think they'd ever do that. You've got to slowly release these things. You've got to drip it into the public consciousness. You can't just dump it on them. And I think I sometimes, depends which hat I'm on, sometimes I think the total opposite. But today I've got that hat on where I think we're part of the solution, which makes me think I'm just still trapped in the exact same paradigm. We're part of the problem. We're not helping at all. Anyway, I laugh about it because it's just one of those things I mull over, philosophically speaking.
I think from day one, Savage has always said we're in a psyop. You kind of hope that it is how you described it first, that it's a slow drip to ease the pain on the collective consciousness in terms of such a paradigm change.
Right.
Whether it is or not, Nathan, I'm like you.
Well, coincidentally, as we've got a guy called Thrice on it, there's a YouTuber called Thrice 8 Hermes who's currently detailing the demiurgic system as he describes it, and he says it as follows: it matters not whether or not you're on the truth or the lie side, they're both part of the same system. So while you might seem righteous with your 9/11 truth campaign, you're still part of the exact same truth and lie system. Yeah, now that's kind of what I'm hinting at here. If it's just part of a system and they need to tentatively release it on the public, they couldn't just announce it on the BBC. Oh, by the way, every time we showed you a globe, that was actually just bullshit. That's never going to happen. But how would it happen? Well, how is it happening? Because it's happening. We're part of that. For better or worse.
So, am I gathering that a slow release is a better dosage, if you will, to kind of calmly wake people up versus abruptly and kind of shaking them like crazy?
I don't think they want to wake people up at all. I think not their plan. If there was a plan and there is a dude with a plan, then God, this feels terrible to anthropomorphize what I think is something completely organic and societal based. We self-brainwash. Anyway, if there was a plan, I think it would be the case that it's more a relinquishment of the idea based in philosophy that we're on a sphere. So it'd be more the case that they just relinquish that. They might replace it with something else that might not be the obvious and observable flat nature of our reality. But the relinquishment of that philosophy, I think, is what I'm reading between the lines, what I see happening. So it's not really very speculative. That's just what I see occurring. And even in the way they report the stats on it, they'll ask whether people are just skeptical of the globe, as opposed to, are you a flat earther? Are you just recognizing the nature of the world around you? They say, are you losing touch with your religious philosophy? Is kind of how they'll present it in the media, from what I see gleamed from YouTubers that report on this stuff.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I think they're dropping the globe philosophy. They want to ridicule flat Earth. It's been part of it. It's part and parcel. It's like it's yang. So it's always going to be part of their controlled op with Flat Earth Society and things of that nature. It's always gone alongside it because you need to, ridicule the obvious and observable if you're going to declare the ludicrous and absurd, which is what they've had to do. So there's always going to be that unity between flat Earth and globe Earth in terms of how they've presented it to the public till now. So that is kind of arbitrary. It's only linguistic. The words flat Earth might not be great, but only because of the connotations that the controlled opposition's already had their hooks in from year dot, as far as I can tell. Did you want to present something, Adam? Have you got something up for me?
It was just a snippet from 1984, which kind of links the two purposes. So just quickly read the quote. For certain purposes, of course, that is not true. When we navigate the ocean or when we predict an eclipse, we often find it convenient to assume that the Earth goes round the sun and the stars are millions upon millions of kilometres away. But what of it? Do you suppose it is beyond us to produce a dual system of astronomy? The stars can be near or distant according to as we need them. Do you suppose our mathematicians are unequal to that? Have you forgotten doublethink? It's the last bit.
Excellent clip, yeah. I remember reading that for the first time after Flat Earth, not the first time I read it ever, and just your eyes widen, because it's during the torture scene. Excellent clip, Adam. Well done.
Nathan, are you able to be any more specific about who the they that you were talking about are?
Yeah, I can. It's us. Us. That's who they are. Us.
Yeah, good answer, actually.
That's why I'm smirking while I'm saying it. Because I'm like, it was me who told myself I was on a sphere. You know, they told me it was a model. When I look into the details of it, they're quite open about the reification. You know, the embracing the fiction in their science. They say it themselves. And who are they when we're talking about that? Well, they're just people too. You know, Andrew Thomas Young, he's just a dude. Is he an elite Freemason? Well, maybe, but I'm saying no, he's just a guy who happens to have squared a circle in the heliocentric model that needed squaring to keep that philosophy alive in his explanations for himself and for others to view. And as far as he's concerned, I'm sure he's done a very good job. Right? Well, he's just a guy. That could have been you. Well, are you they? Are you the elite masters that keep us on a sphere? No, we do that to ourselves. Shout out to Alexander. Oh, it's quite a lengthy. Let's move my camera a bit closer, or my mic a bit closer. There are studies that show that children in their early stage of experience Earth as flat and motionless, and the sun moving across the sky. That is before brainwashing school. And thereafter, because that's exactly how you experience it, right? That's how it is. It's obviously and observably flat. I look up and I see the sun moving. It might go past this wall. Well, it wasn't. It's not the wall moving.
Nathan, can you explain how the tides work if water is flat?
No idea. Did I make a claim about that? Thanks for the super chat, Alexander, by the way.
So there's no tides on flat Earth?
Because I can't explain it, you're under the misapprehension that me not being able to explain it eradicates the effect. It's a bit like when you thought that natural law, right, somehow eradicated things that occur always, like tides. So you think me not being able to explain it means they don't exist anymore? Wow, that's a good start.
Water is
my bad. I was still there talking, and there we are with Fundy mute button. Yeah, so that's my bad, is it? Right. So because I can't explain it, I'm not a tide expert, nor have I made any claims about tides. That means that tides aren't real. Wow.
What are tides?
I don't make any claims about tides. You tell me. What's this tides? You brought them up. You tell us. What's your claim?
No, I just have a question how tides work on the flat Earth.
How tides work on the globe?
Okay, I'll concede. I don't know. I'll concede. May I ask you a question?
No, maybe someone else can answer.
I can answer.
Whoa. So, I've said I don't know. That's reasonable. And you've not told us the point of why you're asking. You're just asking a random question. So, I've got a question that's directly...
Yeah, I wish to know how it works on the flat Earth.
How is working on globe Earth?
I've asked him that. I've said, what's your claim? I've tried that, my friend. Yeah, now moving
Have
on
you
to my
proven
question
it's
to hit.
something
Hold
other
on,
than
God.
that?
Why? I just need 10 seconds to ask the question. So, can you explain, relevant to the subject, premature sycamore pollination on a globe Earth?
Right. So does anyone else know how tides work on the?
So you're not gonna answer me. If you want to continue the tide conversation, I'd like you to make a claim. The reason you're bringing up tides, I've not made a claim about them, but you're bringing them up now. I want to know why. What's the point?
I wish to know how it works on the flat Earth.
Right.
If the water is flat,
nice.
how can you have tides?
Maybe do
Please
some
explain.
maybe do some research.
Oh, so the flat Earth debate show doesn't know.
What if we
What am I
told you like you
debating?
always tell
What am I
us?
debating? My conceptualization of how it works on a model. Well, you're not making a claim, mate. This isn't a debate yet because you haven't made a claim. You're just challenging me to explain something, and I'm trying to highlight the absurdity of that by asking you to explain premature sycamore pollination in the north of England on a globe. Can you do that? Does that mean it's not real? Where's the debate if we don't have a back and forth with a claim first being made?
Well, I'm asking a question, so maybe one of the flat earthers can talk about it.
Yeah, I'm making a question too that's absurd and seeing if you can answer it on a globe. You're not seeming to see the parallel.
It's not an absurd question what I ask.
Well, why isn't it absurd? What does it prove?
I'm simply asking how...
Oh, yeah, what does it prove? I've heard your question. I don't need it parroting 20 times. If this continues, you're going to get kicked out. I need you to actually make a claim. What do tides prove according to you?
I never made a claim.
Well, then what's the point of you bringing them up?
Something.
So it's a burden of proof reversal fallacy then? Charge us with making a claim about them that you can pull apart. We're not making a claim about them, Ed.
Yes.
Not making a claim about them.
I'm asking a question about.
Yeah, I know you are. We've heard your question.
Flat Earth show.
Yeah, we heard.
In the
You're just going to keep saying
flat
it.
Earth, it had...
Rams, hold on. So sorry, you don't need to keep asking the same question through me over and over again. I've asked you what relevance this has. Is it attached to a claim that you make? It's not attached to a claim I make. So if it's not being attached to any claim, it's spurious. But you won't make a claim about it, and I know why. Because the moment you make a claim about it, I will rip it to shreds. That's what'll happen. But you want me to make a claim about it, right? Yeah? No, that's not going to happen. I'm not that dumb. Other people around me might bite while I'm trying to point that out. Other people might interrupt me while I point out that I can ask those absurd questions too, in the form of premature sycamore pollination in the north of England, and demand you explain it on a globe. And then claim defeat when you can't, because you can't explain premature sycamore pollination in the north of England on a globe, now can you? Meaning I win. You've not made a claim about it, but I'm going to demand you explain it, right? And you can't, right? You can't explain that premature sycamore pollination. Fail, globe loses, flat earth wins. Seem like a wholesome victory? Or merely a burden of proof reversal fallacy? About something you're not making a claim about, in this case, premature sycamore pollination, or in your case, tides. Now, I've not made a claim about how it proves flat Earth with the premature sycamore pollination on a globe that you can't prove. Just an absurd notion I'm demanding you prove for me, like you're doing with tides. Okay, bonehead?
You asked me what it was related to, and it's related to flat Earth.
And I'm making a claim about it, but given that that's my position, or are you going to misrepresent by way of, let's just guess, a generalization fallacy? Maybe a stereotyping fallacy? You'll say that we claim it because flat earthers claim it? I've said to you now 4 times. Maybe repeat after me. I've not made a claim about tides now, have I? Didn't you want a piece of Arwen?
Well, if you think Arwen can explain it, fine.
Whatever you want. Once the after show starts, my tone will change, and it'll be you and Arwen. All I'll be doing is keeping everyone off you both.
Yeah, you always go wild in the after show. It's great.
No, you don't listen. My tone will... Just slow down. My tone will change, and you and Arwen will be moderated by me. I will most likely have to keep other people off you and Arwin.
If he talks about the tides on a flat Earth, fine.
I don't care.
I'll accept.
I don't care what you talk about. If you can sucker him into that, given that I've just torn it a new one,
I
and you've
care,
been listening the whole time, right? If you think you can do that on Arwin and you'll get away with it, we'll see how you get on, mate. I won't interject and say, Arwin, by the way, I've just pulled this apart. He's been listening. He's here.
Well, he's not saying much, is he?
Yeah.
Arwin
Very
will
wise.
accept tides on a flat Earth.
Yeah, Arwin's sharper than you. He knows when to shut up.
Warming up with an Illuminati croissant for you.
Illuminati croissant. With that, I'll say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering Stream, then stay tuned, as there will be, obviously, an after show to follow with Arwin and Ed going at it, hopefully, full bore. If you're watching this live, massive thanks to all of you. Smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Of course, a massive thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's live show possible. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering Stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!